Here at God Family Guns, we look at every comment that comes across our YouTube channel. It's really a daunting task, and we look at all of them. We try to respond to as many of them as we can. Mostly we focus on the prayer requests. But every now and then I get a comment when somebody criticizes me saying that self-defense or carrying a gun is your God-given right. And they say that is not a God-given right. So I'm here to this video to show you that it absolutely is a God-given right. And it's exactly in black and white in our Bible. And this is really the point of this video. I think it's an awesome lesson to learn because God does really say it is okay to defend yourself. More so, He literally puts it straight in His Word. I've made several videos about God saying it's okay to defend yourself, but this one's specifically about God saying it is your God-given right. And the book I'm going to take a look at is the Book of Esther. Now, the interesting thing about the Book of Esther is God is mentioned nowhere in this book, but He is all over the pages of this book. And what is going on here, I'm just going to do a quick recap. What is going on here is Esther is the queen, and she is also a Jew. Her uncle Mordecai refuses to bow down to the king, who declares himself to be God, and his right-hand man, Haman. And Haman conspires against Mordecai. It just really eats him up. So what Haman does is he essentially tricks the king into making a decree to allow all the provinces within his kingdom to, on a certain day, kill all the Jews. Now, of course, this causes the Jews great distress because once a king has made a decree in this particular kingdom, because he's in his own eyes God, he can't reverse it. So it causes great distress to the Jews. And there's a point where finally Mordecai goes to Esther and says, hey, you got to do something about this. And Esther really can't go approach the king because the law is you can only go approach the king as if he calls you. And she had not been called, but she essentially declares, well, if I perish, then I will perish. There's an interesting exchange that takes place in chapter 7. Once Esther kind of calls Haman on his conspiracy and shows him that he has tricked the king's greatly distressed, and I think, and I've had this pointed out to me by several pastors, that this transition that takes place is kind of a shadow of our relationship with God. Well, it starts in verse 6, then Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. So Haman was terrified before the king and queen. And then the king arose in his wrath from the banquet of wine and went into the palace garden. But Haman stood before Queen Esther, pleading for his life, for he saw that evil was determined against him by the king. When the king returned from the palace garden to the place of the banquet of wine, Haman fell across the couch where Esther was. Then the king said, will he also assault the queen while I am in this house? Now, this is kind of a shadow of our relationship with God, because really God has kind of left us on this earth with the enemy. He still watches out for us, but we are here with the spiritual enemy. And that's just the reality of the situation that we're in. But once the king realizes what he has done, he can't take back his decree. So what the king goes on to do is he can't take back his word, but where he says in chapter 8, verse 8, you yourselves write a decree for the Jews as you please in the king's name and seal it with the king's signet ring. For a letter which is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's signet ring, no one can revoke. So the king's scribes were called at that time in the 3rd month, which is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day, and it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded to the Jews, the satraps and the governors and the princes of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces in all, to every province in its own script, to every people in their own language, and to the Jews in their own script and language. And he wrote, in the name of the king Asterius, sealed it with the king's signet ring, and sent letters by courier on horseback riding on royal horses bred from swift steeds. By these letters the king permitted the Jews who were in every city to gather together and protect their lives. And that's exactly what they did. So there it is, right in the Word of God. You have the God-given right to defend yourself. Regardless of where on the planet you live, it is your God-given right to self-defense. And I know many of you out there feel like you don't have that right, but that's because man is taking that God-given right away from you. And of course, that's not their ability to do if you defend yourself. And that's probably why the Second Amendment was written in the first place, because there's so many nations that just take it upon themselves to take that God-given right from us. So there you go. There's my 2 cents on our God-given right to the Second Amendment. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. If you feel called to be a patron of this channel, our Patreon link is below. We're also in the middle of a fundraiser for our little Christian school. We are not state funded, so if you feel called to support us, our GoFundMe link is also below. But the most important part of this YouTube channel is we take prayer requests, so please just don't ever hesitate to send that stuff in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.